Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for joining us today on our pre-show webinar series. This webinar is new to our lineup, and I'm pleased to introduce our expert professional visual merchandiser, Matthew Goodman, who's going to take you through this very important topic on the essentials of a well-designed booth. So without further ado, Matthew, it's all you.
Thank you very much for that great introduction, Nancy. So today we're going to be speaking about and having some fun with the fundamentals of a well-designed booth. So this is a webinar, and it'll be recorded and posted on the IHA's website under the Education tab. And for further information or introduction, please contact Nancy Michael. She's the Senior Manager of Trade Show Business Development, or your sales representative at 847-692-0139. So I'm the presenter. My name is Matthew Goodman, and I'm an honors graduate from Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City. And I also served as an adjunct professor there. I'm a licensed interior designer, and I hold the NCIDQ, which is the National Certification of Interior Design Qualification. And I recently passed my project management exam, so I understand the business as well as the artistic side. This is a slide of my contact information, and I'm available to IHA show members for consultation, and I'll also take and answer questions throughout the presentation. So please be sure to take a shot of this. I'll leave it up for just a second. Remember that this will be posted as well, so if you need to contact me, you can go back to the posting. I'd love to hear from you after the webinar. So please join me. I'm a 20-year expert, and I have a career in visual merchandising that spans from global trade shows, national retailers, and shopping mall developers, and some of the retailers I've even worked for, places that you probably even know about, like Victoria's Secret, Macy's, Lord & Taylor, all on the corporate level and the national level. Today we'll uncover the essentials needed to elevate your booth presentation across all price points. You can access this information through the marketing kit, also found at the housewareshow.org/marketing kit. But there's something very special happening. It's the IHA's launch of the Best in Booth Design Awards based on many of the topics in this very webinar. So if you need to sign up, please, and if you love to sign up, we'd love to have you. Please visit housewareshow.org/show /slash boothmanship. I think I a little bit mixed that up, but it's there in writing. Or you can contact Nancy Michael, who nicely introduced me today earlier as well. So this section will offer some guidance in the scope of the areas of property presentation, color application, graphics, lighting, display fixtures, product management, and move-in suggestions. So we're going to just jump right into the use of properties. So what is that? Many popular movies and theater productions and retail stores use properties, also called props, to set a tone to tell a story. Props define things like a time period, a location, and a guidance for the audience through narratives leading to the conclusion, in our case, closing a sale. So props can also help deal with conveying product line essence, understanding of your product use, and increasing chances of buyers entering your booth. And I actually put up pictures of iconic props that we all know and from like movies and we can relate to. So this is something that we'll talk about a little more thoroughly as in terms of your booth and as it goes into your presentation planning. So props can aid in conveying the essence of a product line with a quick glance. So for example, Farmhouse Fresh, this company has these gigantic, wonderful paper florals made of fire-resistant material, and they're not selling those. You can see that's not part of their product line, but it does aid in this this feeling, this essence, and this spirit of the booth. Or props can be as simple as what's shown in the lower right-hand corner, like simply adding citrus to your bowl to say that you can place things in the bowl to further sell the product. Props can be used to aid in telling a story. So let me be a little bit more specific about that. In the in the left corner, you'll see a table setting, and above the table setting there are, the glass vases with the kind of like traditionally used floral inside the vases, and then they kind of like elevated them. So this could like be on a pathway, like one of like 2 or even 3 directions. The first direction is taking that glass vase or the bowl and making it more of a statement piece and making it more propish and putting like the twisted dried wisteria in there. Now that would be a great display in your display booth. You know, if you look closely, the twisted wisteria has like little lanterns that hold more like votive candles or something like that. Now the other way and the other pathway we can go down by using the same glass vase technique is to show your main product. We're going to talk a little bit about that later, but you can really, you know, amplify your main product in that look. Also, props can be used to tell how a merchandise can be used. For example, the glassware on the lower right corner shows like on a tilted board, so that this way, this will show that the liquid inside the stemless drinkware will not spill. So these are different ways you can educate people by showing what your product is, what your the function of the product, as well as like the twisted wisteria propping, just to really magnify the look and the essence of the display. So you can also introduce a background and the texture to better merchandise the display of your story. For example, to the left, there's an American-made kind of 4th of July feel as like placemats, and you know, it further amplifies the fact that this is kind of like a summery feel. To the right, we have more kind of like an Asiatic feel with just the introduction of a couple different textures like wood and the woven mat, as well as another kind of like woven mat under the cooking tagines as well. So it's kind of like a real Asiatic look that they're striving for, and you really don't have to say this. There's no signs there that says like, you know, we are 4th of July or we are like an Asiatic style presentation, but it just makes a statement, and it does sell on a dime, if you will, on a nice budget. So you can introduce the texture, background, color, and in this case, it's like more of like the soft tones too, and the background texture. So, for example, I think these are like cookers, maybe rice cookers or steamers. They probably don't come in their box with the wooden displayer. You know, the wooden displayers help to best amplify the product and make it look nice and elevate it, but it's really not part of the actual product line. So again, props aid in conveying the essence of the product line with a quick glance. Like, for example, to the left, there's a real like country merchandising display going on with the birch aspen branches and the chandelier. Whereas to the right, it's more like topiary. Now, this is like one of the first examples of non-houseware goods, and we're going to be talking about borrowing ideas a lot from other industries. Yes, I realize that these are votive candles, and they may not be things that are, you know, found in kitchens and kitchenware and housewares, but wouldn't it be great to substitute out something of that same scale in kitchen goods and housewares and keep in those props of the garden items? I think it would really, you know, lend itself quite nicely. So here we have an example, and it's a really fun, upbeat example. I really love this one, of how the merchandise also can be props. So, you know, what I'm saying is, you know, you don't have to only think that you must have the prop, which is separate from your merchandise mix. Go forward and be creative with your merchandising and show how, like, the merchandise can be used for propping and to further tell a story. Like, this mannequin is dressed in this really kind of cool, I guess you could almost call it like a dream wedding dress or a dream ball gown dance dress in the style of like these housewares, you know, and these tabletop goods that are surrounding her. So what I'm thinking is, you know, be fun, be creative with your merchandise as well. Now, talk about being fun and creative with your merchandise. Be inspired by displays that are from other industries. Like, for example, this is a really inspirational display of like a giant shoe, which has like pots and pans and pan lids that are made to look like a piece of fashion accessories. Now, you know, I'm not saying you have to go out and, you know, get a bunch of pots and pans and make a giant fashion accessory in your booth. and nor would I think that would be, economically wise either. But I do think that there is something really interesting and compelling here by saying, hey guys, become inspired by displays that you might see on the streets and that you can take into your own display booths.
Hey, Matthew.
Oh, yes?
We have a question.
Okay, great.
So the question is, I'm not that creative. How can I best figure out what prop to buy and place in my booth?
Oh, okay, great question. Thank you for that. Good question, and that's a really common exhibitor question as well, because a lot of our exhibitors are very, operations oriented, and then when it comes to displaying their items in the booth, there's kind of like a feeling that they may need a little more support and guidance, and that's what I'm here for. So, for example, you don't have to go out and put in like a baking pan or modern sculptures in a retail store setting and then put it in your own area. What you can do, actually, that's a really great. I'm going to forward this. Okay, what you can do is go to your own website or your own literature or brochures, and oftentimes there's props in there already, and that'll actually, if you can take that prop and get like a 3D version of it, let's say, and put it on display in your booth, that'll further amplify your brand's look and feel. For example, there's a company here on display in this slide I have up called Shinola from Detroit. I happen to know that in their literature, their product literature, whether it be online or in paper, they have like a prop of a ball, and they have a couple other props, and like the boy throwing the ball. What they did was they actually placed the football on display. So the football is really not, part of their merchandise mix. In this case, it's watches. But they also, have a really cool bike on display too. So in their literature, they had like the boy biking and the boy playing ball. He's a very sporting, kind of kid, and it's this very sporty kind of company. So this is what I recommend for you, is to look no further than what you already have. And perhaps, and 9 times out of 10 I've noticed, many of the companies have something on their literature that they can just take that idea and place it on display in their own display booth. I hope I've been able to help on that question answer. So we're going to move on to color and texture application.
Matthew?
Yes?
We have another question.
Oh, fantastic. Is that for color or for props? Okay.
Props. So when we use props, what union rules apply? In short, if we want to build a giant shoe out of pans, can we build that ourselves without further costs? These are all creative ideas, but let's talk money in terms of setup and union and show rules. Right.
I mean, first of all, always refer to your setup manual and the show rules, of course, according to operations, and you have to abide by those. But secondly, you can also just pre-assemble some of these props in your own offices or warehouses or garages even. I've done it in my own garage. And then you can just place the prop on display or do like some light assembly on display at the trade show. And beyond union rules, I would just recommend it in terms of time saver standards as well.
So also, I'm just going to kind of chime in here on that. One thing you want to be cognizant of is weight. The costs really come in on the drayage, which is the cost to get your booth from the dock to your actual booth space. So, you want to try to use lighter materials if possible. I think pre-assembling is a great idea. In terms of setting something up complicated in your booth, it should be okay with the reform rules, but I would definitely, as you kind of figure out what you're going to do in your booth, contact your sales manager for whatever hall you're in and let them kind of work with you and find out, specifics to your questions.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nancy. So I'm going to move on from propping, and we're going to go into color and texture applications if we don't have any more propping questions. For color and texture, these are really important tools to be used in booth presentations and through visual merchandising. Combined with the use of interesting texture, color can be used to do a number of things, like make visitors feel different emotions, suggest associations about product attributes, influence the behavior of buyers and evoke different reactions. So for example, rough textures like fake or faux stone and slate suggest a rugged kind of country look. You know, almost think Ralph Lauren-ish on one level. And then smooth textures like polished metals and glass evoke like a sleek urban look. So goods can be presented within a monochromatic color scheme. This is kind of like the first of our color stories. And this is it. This is like, you know, if this were the Oprah magazine, this would be the breathing space. You know, this is like centerfold, guys. One of my favorite shots, and I dedicated this to almost an entire page. It is not from a gallery or from a museum. This is from a trade show booth. So you can present goods in one color, a monochromatic color scheme, and you can show the goods also when you place them on display is kind of figure out like a table setting, but realize that, you know, buyers are going to really need to know what it's going to look like on site in their own retail stores. Goods can be presented in a color scheme of limited selection. So earlier we talked about a monochromatic color scheme of one color. This is like a limited colors. So this is white merchandise and then kind of taken to another level by introducing a little bit of a texture as well as introducing props and some color. And you can see like through the texture of the hand towel and the sachet as well as the combs and the hair goods. It really kind of like helps to show the merchandise and move the merchandise, further educate how it can be used, but also it really holds together nicely with the whole color scheme. Again, holding the color scheme together nicely, and I would say like through the use of color, this whole display looks really together. If this were a display of all different color merchandise, I don't think it would be equally as successful. So goods can be presented with like in a limited color scheme suggestion, and goods can be also grouped together by similar texture and shape. So you'll notice that the, you know, this is obviously the wooden textures of the drinkware, but you'll notice that the goods are placed together by the similar stemware color. And then to further amplify the look of the goods, there is a nice blue background as well introduced. So it kind of like sets it off. Goods can be grouped together by similar texture and shape. So that, you know, that's like what we just kind of came from, that previous slide. And it also shows in the upper left-hand corner. So you can see that those goods are kind of placed together by like the wood and like the very similar color schemes or textures, you know, like that rubbery material. But in the lower right corner, items that are not similar in shape can be grouped together in the same kind of texture background, which will hold the story together. I think that we talked a little bit about holding the story together in a previous slides. But for example, if this kind of like country, I guess Western, country Southern display did not have the wooden background, I'm not so sure that it would be successful on like a white pegboard or, you know, like a white hardboard display. I think that the wood of the background really holds it together and really completes the whole story. So don't be afraid that if your goods are a little bit, you know, not quite going together in a story, to put in a stronger background, and it really would help to hold the story and the look together. And become inspired by displays that are in other industries. So this display features surfboards and would translate well to an exhibit promoting island-style serveware. I mean, imagine a couple more tables in that display on the white platform, and then have some island-style serveware on top of the table displays. I mean, that would easily translate very successfully and be a real fun, hip, upbeat display showing tabletop goods. Again, goods can be presented within a limited color scheme. So we went from like a real, you know, high-end, larger, you know, more expensive display to, you know, hey, what do we do just like on our tabletops? You know, I've got a very small presentation, and so what you can do is add that texture display in on the back of the, like the wooden cutting board, and then you can put items that have a similar texture or color on that cutting board, and it'll really hold it together. Color and texture can also set a tone and a mood for the display. So these are all photos, again, from trade shows. These are not from like galleries or museums or any, cool installations that are like around the city. These are straight up trade shows. So here I've chosen like the color red accented with the whites. And you can see that they have different feelings and different tones depending on the merchandise mix, the display, and the texture as well.
Matthew?
Yes?
Got another question.
Oh, great.
How can I make our booth look more colorful?
Oh, okay. In this show, depending on your booth package, you have the ability to paint the background wall, the back wall. You can paint it. That's one way to kind of like deliver a background color to your booth. There's other ways you can do it. You can add large-scale graphics. We'll get into graphics a little bit, but Freeman, the company that is basically the general contractor, is and the stand builder for this show. They have the ability to have large-scale printing happen, and then you can just work with your salesperson or your Freeman rep in advance by sending them your artwork, and they'll be able to enlarge it as well. Okay, I'm going to move on. And again, become inspired by displays in other industries. Borrowing inspiration from this furniture display, the Houseware exhibit shows goods in a similar format of color and texture. I mean, I just thought it was really interesting and compelling how the Heller display of furniture is on an angle within the display booth. It's on a white, shiny, like uppers, uprising, I can't talk today, I'm sorry, upper moments. And then it shows a selection of colorful merchandise that's kind of on an angle. And this display to the right, on the lower right, is the same exact thing. I was just really amazed how people are like inspired by different displays from other different industries. So it is, again, a display of merchandise on a white upper, like an upriser, as well as with different color merchandise, and then the merchandise is actually stacked on different levels as well through the display on an angle within the display booth. I thought that was just like a really great example of how one display can be influenced by another. And then talk about like a display kind of being influential. And again, become inspired by the displays in other industries. The surface of this exhibit could lend themselves fashionably to showcase housewares. Yes, this is like a furniture show exhibit, but wouldn't it be cool to put something in there that would really, really be kind of like unexpected and fun? Like, wouldn't it be great to put glassware or barware on top of those display areas? The pop-up stools could replace the heavy pedestals. I mean, earlier in the webinar, Nancy was talking about shipping and weight issues for shipping. So wouldn't it be great to, have like easier pop-up stools that could, replace those heavy items? And speaking of like the pop-up stools, I mean, talk about like the structure of the booth too. The surfaces of this exhibit could lend themselves fashionably to showcase houseware goods. This display is made of fire-resistant paper. It is from the Furniture Fair show, but wouldn't it be great to place our items on display in all of these flat surfaces? Now I'm going to actually take you inside, so if you could take like a mental picture of this display from the outside, and then we're going to walk inside. This is the display on the inside, and even the lighting fixture, that's made of paper as well. Again, everything's fire resistant, but wouldn't it be fabulous to put our goods on display? I can see some shiny glassware, some chrome here. There's some really great kitchen gadgetry I could see on this table, and make a fun story with some of our propping. So become inspired by the displays, and don't feel that you are necessarily bound to only use inspiration from the displays within the houseware industry. So goods can be presented within the monochromatic color scheme, yet within different textures. So this is a display that shows like, a giant chandelier, which has kind of like a very textured, almost like a crunchiness to the glass, and then there's like the smooth, chromy shininess to the glassware up front. I mean, isn't this a wonderful kind of like dichotomy in between, between the merchandise selection and the propping. Now, I'm not saying that, you guys have to go out and buy this gigantic chandelier. I mean, I don't know how realistic that is of me to, ask that of you. But what I am saying is, become inspired and figure out, like, what could you do to emulate that look. In other displays I've done in the past showing gourmet kitchenware, because I've mixed in real smooth merchandise that's like really shiny and chromy like this, and I got sea glass from on the internet, and I interspersed that on the table in between the merchandise, and it looked just great. And it kind of really reminds me of this look, and that's something that you guys can emulate as well. Our display ideas. Yep, sure.
I got another question for you.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, I am in Inventor's Corner with a very small 5x10 booth. Aside from the pops, I don't know what that is, P-O-P-S, I'm assuming props, and how important is the overall booth decor important to a buyer?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I would say even if you have a small booth, I mean, you're actually kind of at an advantage in terms of time for setup as well as budget, because you don't have a lot to set up. And your booth could really look like a small little wonderful gem. There's really no reason why your booth couldn't just look fabulous no matter what size the booth is. How to make it look good, and if the buyer is interested, I would absolutely say so. Buyers are traditionally people who are, interested in the dollars and cents and the bottom line, and they might be looking at your booth and not know immediately what your merchandise is going to look like in their final retail setting. So I would try to figure out who your special buyer might be, or where you would like your merchandise to be set up, or who your key buyers already are, and display your merchandise similar to almost how they would want to see it displayed in their store. And I would say that's a very important thing, to let the buyers know what your merchandise is going to look like in store, as well as the fact that you have a very beautiful booth presentation overall. It can look like a great little genie bottle. And I'm really serious about that. Some of the most wonderful booths I've seen are like 3x5, 5x7s. So I'm going to go on. I hope I've been able to answer that and inspire the person who asked the question. Borrow display ideas from other industries. So wouldn't it be cool to go out to other trade shows, or even this is a fabulous time of the year to go window shopping, and check out like that red background to the left. I mean, I know that's a merchandise display featuring like furniture and home goods, but wouldn't it be fabulous to put our shiny chromy items on top of that gray surface? Or even check out that display to the right, which is kind of like this, breakfast at Tiffany's kind of graffiti look. I just love it. Wouldn't it be fantastic to take a table, almost like the table from our previous display with the chandelier, and place something on display in front of that, even with that same selection of merchandise? Okay, the graphics I think are really fun and important. The use of graphics and photography in the booth displays is an effective way of grabbing attention and communicating information to the buyers. And it'll be used to show new product. We love new product at the IHA. Order minimums, and talk about show specials. They must communicate a short, clear message and be consistent with the brand's marketing and communications models. So here's some examples of really simple graphics and logos and slogans that can be captured and show the spirit of the company presentation. So, one way is on the upper left-hand corner is on the repeat of the panels, those pull-up panels, and the other way is through a rub-down lettering that almost looks like, like the old-fashioned style silk screening. Again, you can place your logos and the slogans right center on your merchandising displays area, so it's not blocking the merchandise, but in fact enhancing the merchandise. Vitamix put it center, but a little higher than where a person would stand, so even if a person's standing there, it's not really blocking the Vitamix logo. And Panasonic takes advantage of a blank wall so you can show passersby to come on into the Panasonic booth. Use signage opportunities to educate buyers about newness. We love newness, deals, promotions, and minimums and product attributes. So again, this is not a picture on the upper left-hand corner of a gallery or a museum. This is directly from a trade show booth, and it's showing in this like triptych, if you will, like the attributes of butter and the butter dishes in different colors and different styles. And here the Battery says, did you know that butter doesn't require refrigeration? So, they're just showing the attributes that you can have this item on display in your table in its final home.
Matthew?
And yes?
Another question.
Sure.
Good group
This is
today.
great. I love the questions.
Where can we get large-scale graphics printed to place on display?
Okay. One place you can start with is the show general contractor called Freeman. You can look them up in your setup manual. But there's other places that you can get it. I have actually a list of large-scale printing places that is online already through the website as well. Also, if you want to talk about it a little bit in depth with me, I'll be glad to speak with you afterward. But there are a number of vendors for that. And those are already made available to you through the website. And I know that those are online right now, too. I hope I've been able to answer that question. Kind of like, enough to guide that exhibitor. I do have to move on, though. The use of signage and opportunities you can use to educate buyers about the newness and deals and promotions. Now, I know that this is like a home textile display, but wouldn't it be great if we had in our display booth pre-printed graphics of our packaging? Wouldn't it be fabulous to put the packages on the walls a little bit like they did here, and then show like quits or product attributes of what the product is like? Now, this is a really important slide. I mean, it's almost like the slide that's the launching pad for what could be yet another webinar altogether. Could be titled something like, check out the possibilities of what can be done with the 10 by 10 booth. I mean, it's, again, becoming inspired by other displays and really kind of taking it home to your own booth. These two exhibits took the graphics that are rub-down letters, and they set the tone for the booth. So you can get graphics of anything, especially your company logo, and rub it down and transfer it onto the back wall of your booth. And if you guys
Matthew?
all kind of, yeah?
I'm sorry, we have another question.
Sure.
It says, whenever I go into Freeman's website, International Home Housewares Show isn't available, and neither is IHHS 2017. Am I doing something wrong? You want me to answer this one?
Sure, go for it.
You probably are doing something wrong. What you want to do is go to the website, housewares.org, and look up the exhibitor show manual, and you should be able to link right through on your sign-up sheets, or it'll give you information. Otherwise, if you're still having issue accessing, because this all went live in early November, so if you're having issues accessing, contact your sales manager. Depending on what hall you're in, you should know who your sales manager is. If you don't, feel free to contact me again, and Michael at housewares.org, and I'll help you through it.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm gonna move on a bit. And your company logo can be placed squarely on the back wall of your booth. So that's the one kind of like architectural way to think about it. But in terms of a trade show, it can also be equally as strong if your company logo is placed on the side walls of your booth, like toward the front, to capture attention from down the aisle. So the Bloke presentation is showing the logo squarely on the back wall, but Live Vivid has the logo on the front part of the sidewalls of their booth, so you can kind of capture that look and spirit from down the aisle. So don't be afraid to put your company logos a little bit toward the aisle as well. Signage can be eye level and can also be featured in like a three-dimensional cool format too. So have some fun with your signage. I just wanted to touch a little bit on the large-scale graphics. Most overhead signage is supported by the floor and is not really hung from the ceiling. This type of signage needs to adhere to height restrictions to your booth configuration, and go ahead and work with your sales manager on this to match up the rules and regs. Here's another example of a Wusthof display for overhead signage that's floor supported. You will see signage at the show that's overhead ceiling hung signage. This is an example. The ceiling hung installations are for booths with pre-approval and a minimum of 1,000 square feet. So I would say to wrap up this part is, go ahead, borrow display ideas from other industries. These presentations would work well with Housewares to feature products. And I actually purposely put this in here to kind of break out of the envelope of Housewares. Yes, I realize this is personal care items, but the composition of both of these displays would translate really well into our own display booths. For example, they both have the company logo at the top printed. They have pictures of the items on display in large-scale graphics in use. They both have interesting tables, like kind of console tables, right under the graphics with a nice array of their merchandise and propping. And Illum even went so far as to put a flocati and a really kind of cool, interesting, diamond sculpture in there too as a prop. So we're going to move on to lighting. This is one of my favorite parts, but I'll make it really fast. The lighting aids in telling a story, whether a company provides a general wash of illumination for mass merchandising, or if it's likely to be focused on high-end products. Please know that union labor generally electrified lighting in the convention center. Exhibitors can install and plug in their own light fixture, and just be sure your cords are hidden and correctly covered and tucked neatly, even behind your booth as well. So the labor supplies the juice. You can plug in your own, let's say, IKEA light fixture and then cover the cords. In this section, we'll use the industry terms for lighting called ambient, task, and accent. Ambient lighting is known for general lighting and radiates comfortable levels of brightness and allows you to walk around safely. You've all seen this before in convention centers or your gymnasiums or what have you, or your warehouses. This may not be enough lighting to correctly show your product, though. I would suggest something like the task lighting, which provides improved illumination for your work area, and it may use different bulb types. And these are some of the examples. Like you've seen a desk lamp. I'm sure you're probably all sitting near one right now. But these are on the right is examples of the goosenecks that are LED and may be available through the convention center. Accent lighting adds drama to a booth by creating visual interest, which is used to draw the eye to an interesting piece or focal point within the stand. Now, I know that the general convention lighting is not going to be off like it is in this kind of nightclub scene, but it does show you an example of what accent lighting does. It may not show the merchandise, but it'll kind of set the tone. The types of lamps that are typically used on site, if you could draw your eye down to the bottom, please note that lamps and light bulbs are usually called lamps within the lighting industry. So there's, the A lamp that provides a warm general illumination. You probably are all aware of this. Some are warm for incandescent and have a warmer glow and provide almost a yellowy hue over the merchandise. And some are LED, which are a little cooler for the merchandise. And you guys all know this because it's the symbol for an idea. The next type of lamp is the color rendering is for the PAR lamps, which is a warm and focused illumination. Some of the PAR lamps are incandescent. They are moving toward LED and halogen. And some are more warm for focused illumination, and some are for a general wash of illumination. And also, there's been this this kind of huge boom in the lighting industry that I could really talk much more about it, but I'll just really focus. The color rendering for quartz, halogen, and LED lamps, they're cool and punchy, and the light gets sparkly off of these. And some of the lamps actually come on a spool like they are here in the LED strips on the bottom, and they do have a plug. Some do have a plug, so just ask your supplier if you can just directly plug it in. And also just a word about your MR16s, which are at the top. They're usually with a bi-pin mount. A lot of people, especially like in, they have like punchier merchandise that needs like a pop-out, almost like jewelry. I would suggest to use a cotton glove when installing these. So if you had like something a little bit oily on your hands from that morning, like a croissant or a muffin, the oil will actually burn your light bulb out faster. And these are the types of fluorescent lamps that we use as well, and they have like a cooler beam spread, and there's less shadowy too. So there's all these different types of lights that you can kind of like generally be aware of as well. The fluorescents, they do now come in the cool compact fluorescent instead of just the old strips that under which you studied in your primary and high school years in school. So that's like my lighting part. And with display fixtures, I would say that display fixtures are types of furniture used to feature product in special ways. These are unique fixtures that are often used by retailers or wholesalers in show spaces. They have merchandising displays placed within each fixture, and it's essential that each piece of merchandise is on display within that fixture. Buyers place orders on what they see in the featured products by touching them and picking up from the fixture. And just make sure that the merchandise that you have fits onto the fixture as well before you purchase the items. So in this case, placing products on just simple easels to present themselves in a standing position will add dimension and kind of height and poise to the display and keep items from blocking each other. And here's another example of the easels and just how the products seem to almost like stand at attention. And I also like that the way that people use mini platforms and pedestals to present themselves in a standing position. So this adds a bit more dimension and poise to displays. And I mean, isn't this fabulous? This is like a combination of like our propping section as well as our fixture section. So placing products on platforms and mini pedestals can not only like keep items from blocking each other, but the pedestals themselves can now add voice to the presentation and add kind of like a dreamy element to the display too. Some companies choose to display and feature their goods on custom fixtures, and other companies may choose to showcase their goods on stock fixtures, which is in the case to the right, lower right. And other companies may choose to feature their goods on semi-custom fixtures, which are like stock fixtures with a special unique quality made to show off that product selection. And some companies may choose to showcase their goods using a combination of both custom fixtures, which are like against the wall in this case, and stock fixtures, which is a table that's like on the floor. So, feel free to use a combination of like your cool, fun fixtures. Some companies may choose to showcase their goods by combining custom fixture parts, like the marble tabletop, with the stock fixture legs, for example. So again, become inspired by these displays in other industries. These types of custom display fixtures would really lend themselves nicely to feature our houseware items. And these types of custom display fixtures would also lend themselves to feature our houseware items. So this is a combination of the custom fixturing, which is the shelves on the back wall, as well as kind of like residential style furniture. So we're going to talk a little bit about product placement. I think this is like Nancy's favorite part, actually. The overarching concept in displaying goods in a wholesale setting is to consider how your selection of merchandise will look in store. So capture the best way your merchandise will present itself to its final retail destination. Offer an opportunity for the buyers to visualize how well your goods will be seen within their own store environments. We talked a little bit about this with the exhibitor who presented himself with a smaller booth. So these are like our favorite things. The next step is to study how your grouping of merchandise behaves in the space and how it's best featured. Get a feel for the most trafficked area of your booth and have an ability to kind of like depict the flow of how buyers will arrive at your booth. Then divide up your merchandise into 3 groups: newness, impulse, and flow. So we're going to talk about newness. Goods that your company is newly promoting. Within this group, you must identify your items that are poised to be your top performers. Goods that are being introduced at the International House and Housewares Show. So newness is also called, AKA, the new hero at the International Home and Housewares Show. The impulse merchandise, goods that are poised for add-ons to increase units per transaction when ordering. This type of merchandise is referred to as the sidekick. With this group, you have identified the secondary item that will enhance the larger order, and then you place it in a visible position near the new hero. So now we've got like the hero, the new hero, and the sidekick. Now we've got the flow merchandise, goods that are created to hold a cluster of items together, yet are not necessarily poised as the top 2 performers. Companies that offer kits of items usually have this type of flow merchandise. The tongs to a martini shaker assembly, the checkered table cloth to a picnic set. Guys, this is the part where I have to reveal my secret. The flow merchandise, it's kind of like the townspeople, like in a flick, in a film. This is the part where the people come out with their torches and their their pitchforks, and they kind of rally up about the hero and the sidekick. And then we've got the villain. So take photos of your display to document the final design and merchandise placement. Keep the presentation of your merchandise clear and distinguishable, and try not to let the overwhelming use of products or props become the villain by upstaging your merchandise and potentially eroding sales. The villain struck here. This is the part, where if we had an orchestra, we'd go like, dun, dun, the villain struck here. In the fact that there's no statement, there are minimal propping. I can't tell really what's going on. What's the sale? I really can't tell what's going on here. So what we're doing is we're sending our hero to the rescue, like our heroes to the rescue, and the hero is our new merchandise. Examples of product displays featuring a hero are here. Heroes can be repeated or shown singularly. Examples of merchandising displays can be shown heroes against like the aisle to grab passers-by. I think that's a really good, a parcel of real estate to show your hero item, especially if you've got like a really big display booth and you really need to hold it together, like Archipelago. And then if you've got a very, very small display booth, like our friend who had a question before of the merchandise presentation in the kind of like the Gen style booth, how great would it be to have a wonderful piece of display like fixture, like a small console table with the merchandise on display in front right near the edge of the booth. Goods can be shown in colorways and color stories. Goods can be shown in colorways and color stories, because I think you guys kind of like can grab the fact that like all the purples are together and all the greens are together, but within that there seems to be like a placement of similar products together in terms of size and use. But goods can also be shown in just kind of stories, if you will. So this is an example of a merchandise selection from Muddy Girl, and they set up kind of like a fictitious picnic area. And I would say in this display, they would still have the hero and the sidekick. I'd be really interested to stop by this booth on site, and I would say, if I could guess from the pictures, that the wine holder is the hero, and the sidekick is probably the lunch bag or the apron. I would, those are probably like poised to be their top 2 sellers. That's my own hunch and feeling. I'd be really interested to see if anybody from Muddy Girl is on the display call today, or if we can stop by on site and have a conversation with them. Again, goods can be shown like in stories, not just color stories, but merchandise selection stories. So for example, in this home selection of textiles, I would say that the The heroes are the home textiles like the apron and the hot pads or even the mugs. The sidekicks are probably the candles, and maybe even below the sidekick is the cozy warmer in the style of, I think it's like a chicken or something like that, or even further mugging up top. Goods can be shown in a boutique style presentation or in a mass merchandising style presentation. So it depends on your merchandise, but it also depends on how you want your buyers to perceive how the goods will look in their store. So try different ways of showing your goods. Have fun with your product and your presentation. This company, called Live Vivid, has their goods on display using many different techniques, from laying it out with the products to show it on a flat surface, or showing goods standing with easels, and they also cross-mix their merchandise too. So have some fun with your presentations. And this is an example of a planogram. So you can take photos of your display booth when it's final and complete to document the final design, and merchandise placement for future reference or planogram development. So, you know, for quick access, you could take a photo and just download it. But if you really need to study it, there's all sorts of software and planogramming devices out there to show how your goods can be placed on display. And you can even share this with your retailers as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about move-in information. I know that we're about to close up the webinar, but I've also noticed, and you know, the team at IHA has noticed, when you become the display expert in your booth in your company, you're also kind of by default become like the shipping expert too, because you have to ship all these goods. You have to be in charge of unpacking them correctly and in a way so it's not chaotic in your booth and makes sense. So there are 3 different general methods for delivering products in your booth for these setup purposes. One's pre-shipping for large parcels. The other is personal drop-off through the ASUV program. We'll get into that for a second a little bit later. And pre-shipping for small parcels. So if you have any questions about these in depth, visit the housewareshow.org website that we have listed here. So for pre-shipping of like larger, you know, created bigger parcels, this is recommended for exhibitors who are from outside of Chicago and have heavy goods. It is not recommended to ship fragile or expensive prototypes, and you must ship to the holding warehouse or convention center within a specific time frame prior to the show. And depending on your booth package, most goods will be delivered directly to your booth. Through the personal drop-off, that's called the ASUV program, this is recommended if you're located nearby, have items that can fit into a vehicle no larger than a van, have expensive or one-of-a-kind prototypes, and can park and unpack within 20 minutes, and you must use your own manually operated cart. For participation eligibility, you must have a vehicle that's no larger than a van, 2 people in that vehicle, a valid parking pass, and 1 person must stay in the parked vehicle while the other shuttles parcels back to the booth. For small parcels, if you have an individual parcel that must be sent like separately or later than your larger shipment, it is advisable you actually ship to yourself at your hotel. Traditionally, small parcels are usually delivered to the convention center, but may not make it to your booth in time for show opening. That's a really valuable tip. For expensive items or prototypes, there's a designated free security lockup area with guarded overnight storage in each hall. So please do not store valuables in your empty boxes, your empties, which will be stored by Freeman, because stored empties are not accessible during the show. During the show, and included in your booth fee, is Freeman's Elite Concierge program. This is a premium program that has that allows a level of customer services to the exhibitors. The exhibitors can remain in their booths to conduct business with Freeman while handling concerns traditionally handled at a nearby service desk, so you can stay in your booth. And this provides additional attention and enables tracking and resolution of exhibitors' requests during the run of the show. And then the details are found at the Freeman website. After the show, generally goods are shipped out by the conventional by the convention center and by the same way they arrive. So check your exhibitor services manual and ask Freeman or your EAC for the outbound shipping directions. The show offers a product donation program. So if you wish to donate your product to charity, rather than ship it back after the show does have pre-authorized charities for this program. So visit your setup manual for information on the product donation programs and the list of selected charities. Are there any other questions? Okay. Hey guys, thank you so much for being a fantastic audience. I've had a great time. I'm available for individual consultation exclusively for exhibitors at the show. And please be sure to stay in touch and visit my website. I look forward to seeing you at the show or speaking with you in advance. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. I just want to share, Matthew, you got some really nice comments here. People really appreciate this input. We will be recording and posting this webinar online. You'll all receive a link to the recorded webinar. And please visit the boothmanship presentation page on our website and take all these tips and sign up for our Excellence in Booth Design Award. We'd love to have you join it. So thanks, everybody. See you soon in March. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. See you soon.